All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Lauren and John Matthias from Hidden True Crime on our first ever live podcast. I feel like this is a special moment for me because we had so much fun over on their channel, but now I got the experts over here. We're going to have a good night. So, what I want to get into right off the bat and what we're kind of talking about for a sec is what Thursday was like. And I know that Lauren, you've been there, right, for the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
What was Thursday like compared to the 2 weeks that you've already been a part of?
It's been, to me, the most profound, most memorable, biggest day so far. So, and you were there, Colby, and and John has recapped. He's watched your recap of that day as well as ours on our channel, just to like understand everything that happened. And he saw all the cross examinations. But I just think it was, I don't know, it was shocking how she spoke to Adam, your Uncle Adam. Then I thought that she was going to look forward to really facing Kay Woodcock, because as she even said in jury selection, she said that she looks forward to talking about the people who have lied about her. And of course, I don't believe that Kay has lied, but we know that she's referring to people in her life, right? Not the expert witnesses, but people like Kay and Serena and Adam. And she was actually kind of timid with Kay. And I felt like Kay, I mean, I don't know what you thought, but I felt Kay kind of led that and held her own, even though I'm sure Kay was nervous too.
Right.
And then Serena Sharp was just strange to me.
That was weird.
They were all very different. Weird. So as I explained it on Hidden True Crime, like Adam was like a Thanksgiving dinner gone wrong plus murder, which is very sad. And I'm sorry, I know we're talking about your family.
No,
like,
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And then Serena was like a Bible off, just like who does God love more? And then Kay was like a bit of a timid Lori. I don't know. That's how I took things.
Well, and that's the thing too. Think? Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh. So, John, I don't know how much of it you saw with Adam. I remember, I'll tell you guys one thing I noticed. I don't know if anybody else noticed this. I said this on the video. Adam comes in, and obviously he's starting with the prosecution, and she's talking to him, and I'm kind of watching. I'm pretty close to Lori, so like I'm watching her mannerisms. I'm watching what she's doing. And she's very animated to the point where she's like this every time they say something about her. And he's like, that's, she had started having odd belief system. And she's like this real hard. And then she does a little peek over to see who's watching her on the jury. So she obviously has a game plan, right?
Yeah.
But then what was really odd, and I don't know if anybody else, how they missed it. I just catch it on my side eye. She's looking kind of in Adam's direction, but kind of was looking at the jury kind of, and stuck her hand up like this, made a gun, and then pushed down her thumb like this. I swear, I don't know if court TV or the cameras caught this, and I looked around for validation. I
do that too when I see something.
Wait, Colby, just to clarify, she did that she pointed the gun at Adam?
Towards the front. So if I'm her right here and Adam is where you guys are, where I'm looking at, she was kind of looking over to the side a little bit, and then she stuck her hand out kind of like this real quick, and then just pulled the thumb. I'm like, that's the most blatant gun gesture I've ever seen in my life. There's nothing you could mistake that for. You're not shooting your friend. You're like, hey buddy, how you doing? Like, I couldn't see if she was looking at Adam, but it was unmistakable like this. And people have asked me, because I talked about it on the video, and I'm like, I still could never imagine what else that would be. That is the most blatant thing in the world. So obviously she was gunning for Adam. Literally.
Well, you had a front row, you had a front row seat. The media's in the back, right?
Yeah.
So you have a better view than any of us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. What did you think about the cross when she stood up and started talking to Adam?
Yeah, and just John did watch the whole thing. He has seen the whole cross.
Okay.
it was shocking. The things that she wanted to pursue were shocking. When was the last time we saw each other? How long has it been? Not attending your wedding. I don't know what that's about, but it sounds like that's a sore spot in the family.
So
yeah.
Let me touch on that real quick. I have no idea why she brought that up. Adam was invited. He told me he couldn't make it, and we all moved on. There's no reason. There's no hard feelings. I mean, obviously I would have loved to have him there, but he was working, and I'm an adult now. And if something is in the way, that's what it is. And I never held a grudge. I remember I looked over and I said, what the F does that have to do with anything? What is my wedding being brought up for Adam? It means nothing. So I think she was just trying to discredit Adam as like a close member of the family in that moment.
John's nodding.
Yeah.
You agree, John? Yeah. He did see this.
Well, she's trying to, right. I agree. Like, she's using the wedding as a point of reference for his memory of the last time they talked. She's trying to show that they didn't have a close relationship. Therefore, whatever he has to say doesn't really mean as much because he didn't really know her. That's her argument. Or I think that's what she's trying to show.
Well, I think what's really messed up, right, was the first thing she tried to do is discredit him, because I think she stopped talking to Adam because he told her she was crazy. And he said that. That's exactly what happened. He said, I don't know what you're on. Now, I did not know this. I don't remember when I found this out, but obviously she said something. He said, I don't believe that, something to that effect. And they really stopped talking. So that was their own relationship that they were dealing with. But now I have to ask you, the green chicken chili enchiladas are beyond now famous. Okay.
Apparently it was green chili chicken.
Green chili chicken enchiladas. You're right.
Yeah,
green chili. You're right.
And now I'm a big fan of green chili, so I want to emphasize the green chili part. Let's get that right. I love green chili. So.
He does. I thought about that when she was saying it. Yeah.
I'm like, when she said that, I thought, oh man, like, does this mean I have to like acknowledge something like favorable about Lori, that she could cook green chili? She could cook green chili chicken enchiladas.
So let's put it this way. Okay, I'm gonna be very nice here when I say this.
Okay,
they are the most regular white people, unspicy, unappetizing enchiladas. Okay, it's just the tortilla, the store-bought and store-bought sauce.
Shameful.
Okay, so they're bland.
It's canned chicken, by the way. We're not even we're not using chicken breasts. We're literally just, everything is pre-made, and you throw it in the crock pot and then you put it in there. So apparently that was the staple. Now, I grew up with three things. Okay, pot roast.
Okay,
pasta. And then when I was about 20, green chili chicken enchiladas.
Green chili, yeah.
That's when those got introduced.
You're saying like her
yes.
Her prep and cooking of green chili chicken enchiladas was an insult to green chili chicken enchiladas.
They're not that good.
They need to be spicy. They need, like, she has to use at least like at a minimum Hatch green chili or some New Mexico green chili. Everybody knows that's like
John. John likes green chili chicken enchiladas when done right. When he's having them in New Mexico, but this sounds like shameful hot. What she did to them. She should be ashamed of herself.
That's why it was embarrassing for me. I've had them.
Yeah,
I'm embarrassed for him. Like, why are you even bringing that up? Who remembers what they were eating? But she had to prove that she made him dinner. I don't know.
Well, no, there's let's break this down a little bit, because I mean, aside from making fun of the fact that she like apparently couldn't cook one of my favorite meals, and unfortunately, Colby, I wish she could have cooked them, because then you would have appreciated them, how delicious they can be, right? So, she failed you. Because she didn't,
absolutely.
She didn't.
I did not know they were good. I'm just like, okay, it's dinner. I gotta have something to eat.
Yeah, she failed you by not getting you really invested in green chili chicken enchiladas. So for that, I'm sorry. You'll have to go to like New Mexico then and have some of those. But You know, so one of the problems with representing yourself is that you have to be able to take your ego out of the equation, right? And like one of the things that keeps cropping up with your mom over and over again is she can't get her ego out, right? And this
Yeah.
is an instance. This is an instance of clearly she didn't need to bring this up. She's bringing it up because she's trying to establish a point of reference that she feels is like really important because she was such a good cook.
Right.
Right. Her argument is, how could you not remember my green chili chicken enchiladas? They were delicious. Right. I cooked them all the time. Everybody loved them. Right.
Right.
And so she's trying to establish a point of reference, but she's also giving herself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
She's also saying, I'm a wonderful cook. I was a wonderful mother. I cooked these amazing things, which obviously now you're disputing, but
I'm sorry to tell the world.
Yeah. Well, now the world knows that they're you know, that you didn't miss anything apparently. Although I think you did, because they're a really good green chili chicken enchiladas.
No,
delicious.
They're really good. Yeah.
Don't flatter yourself, Corey.
Don't flatter
yourself. But that's exactly right. Like that's what she's doing, you know, and you know, you can't, if you're going to present a really compelling defense, the last thing you want is for your defense attorney, in this case, your mom, obviously, is to become self-absorbed that they're up on cross-examination talking about how great their green chili chicken enchiladas are. There's like an absurdity to it, right? That's the problem. Like instead of focusing on what's most important in cross-examination, this is what she wants to talk about, right? And so I thought it was hysterical personally, because like any even reasonably competent defense attorney would know that they shouldn't talk about green chili chicken enchiladas. And not only did she bring it up, but she wouldn't. he said, I loved Adam, by the way. He's like, do you remember these? And he's like, no. And she's like,
who remembers
really?
that?
He wants to pursue it with her. He's like, she wants to keep litigating. Really? Like, come on. I cooked.
You remember the kitchen table? You don't remember my pink shirt and my enchiladas, and I fed you by hand. Oh my gosh, bro, it's crazy.
She even threw a number out. She's like, we did this 10 times a year. Where were you? You were there. How could you not remember these? Like, she's losing the argument. She's losing, like, this is why people don't represent themselves, because they get lost in this kind of nonsense that's irrelevant, right? And like she can't see the forest from the trees.
Yeah.
I just want to say this. I wish I had recorded John watching this moment. What I did this morning after I got home really late last night from Phoenix, so I'm going back tomorrow. But I said, you gotta watch all of the cross from Thursday. And I showed him Adam, and first he was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And the moment she said green chili chicken enchiladas, John, I love how John laughs. I think he's adorable. Clearly I married him, but he was just like his shoulders, and he was laughing so hard. I wish you could have seen it, Colby. I wish he would have been excused from court because he could not.
He'd have to leave. I know. It's crazy.
I can't believe she brought it up. I mean, you know, it's not going to help her, I guess.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to look at the perspective, like we talked about with that whole jury idea. She's there to impress them, right? And she looks horrible because they say, hey, this is your brother. And then they go, how long has it been since I've talked to you, Mr. Cox?
Right.
And it's like,
Mr. It's
Cox. Just like, okay, like this is the point. Yeah, she wanted this moment for the confrontation, but you're trying to impress a bunch of random people. You're trying to save yourself and look good. And the problem was she came in with that personal vendetta. And I felt for Adam, honestly, because I'm like, this is a hard situation, because I think for me, what happened was the reality of what happened from someone else's perspective, what happened to Charles, what happened to them, how they experienced that moment, what they had to experience going after that was really heavy for me. Cause I'm like, as crazy as Lori is, I'm like, dang, like this is what happened to him the same day, and how he found out and how he had to process that moment. And so I just felt for him, and I'm like, you're his sister and you have zero care in the world that that's your brother. 0. And I didn't know I didn't know they had such an elaborate plan to get her pulled in, to get her temple recommend taken away. Like, that was new information to me. I was like, "Whoa,"
Mm.
like, all this coordination to try to get it, like, what Charles was doing in the background, like, all that stuff. That was really crazy to me. So I'm sitting there
Yeah.
listening to that, but then I'm also taking just kind of mental notes on her and how she's stepping to him. And she kept trying to force him into a corner because he's a very nice person and he's very non-confrontational. So he doesn't want to argue. So she's like, "You remember that? Remember that?" And he's like, "No, not really." Like, he's not going to try to snap back at her. He's just trying to get out of there. Because
Yeah.
what point is what she's saying even relevant to the case or to anything? You'd rather sit there and prove a point that you made good food, or you're a good mom, or you held all the family events and that he wasn't there one time. I mean, I'm just really still picking her brain. I'm like, "Where are you coming from?" Because I don't see how you're impressing these guys. And
But
I
he did though. He did, like, he didn't come off as particularly confrontational,
Mhm.
but he was in his own way. Like,
Yeah.
when you start off cross and you ask, well, basically Lori asked, when was the last time we talked? And his first response right out of the blocks, he's like throwing it back at her. His first response is, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Like, right. I don't
Yeah.
remember. Like, he's
Right.
he's like he's already, throwing obstacles in her path from her first question.
Right.
Right. And so it's clear from his response. Like, if I'm in Lori's shoes and I'm doing cross examination and I get that kind of response, I'm going to know right away that I'm probably, if my strategy is to be confrontational, I'm going to know right away I'm probably going to have to adjust that a little bit.
Right.
Right. But your mom did not adjust. Like, she just kept on firing away. Right. Well, as you point out, literally, right? Like, the apparent
Yeah.
gun motion that you saw, like that's a great metaphor for how she approaches uh being her own attorney.
Yeah. And going for someone's head, really wanting a problem. And I
It's
think that
also
go
it's
ahead.
also a metaphor for, Lauren and I haven't talked about it yet because I had to get caught up on the trial today.
Mhm.
But um what I was going to tell Lauren is, like, not just knowing that is invaluable, what you said, Colby, but that really, if you want to see, I said this before the trial, I said, if you want to see the portrayal of kind of a criminal mind,
Mhm.
this is a incredible case study. I mean, it's tragic, of course, because
Right.
it involves real people with real lives that people loved, and like you pointed out last night, like, there's a human cost to this, but, like, obviously, but you're seeing who your mother is. Like,
Yeah.
I know there's this narrative out there about how she, in some degree, she broke bad when she met Chad Daybell and she became this different person, right? But I think if you look at it closely, Colby, you'll see that a lot of those elements that you're seeing during this trial, some of those elements were in place before Chad
Right.
Daybell.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think that that's the worst part is too, is like, that was the first moment I had with her, is she walked in and there's always that intensity right before she walks in, and my heart was beating, and then I'm like, I don't know how to explain this moment. Like, I looked at her and just like 3 times in my brain, I'm like, "That's not your mom." And something just broke, and I don't know how to explain how different it was after that moment, but there was almost, for me personally, like a relief. And I just don't know how to explain that. But I just finally was able to fully 1000% say that that is not my mom. And there was almost like a responsibility or something of that nature, some type of weight lifted because of that
Mm.
feeling. And that was right before anything happened. That was in the first moments. And so then I almost watched her from a different perspective. I just kind of case studied her too. I'm watching her mannerisms. I'm watching her and thinking, I know what you're like, who you are, but now I'm not emotionally tied to you. It's really weird. It's really hard to explain. I wish I had a better way of putting it, but It was crazy because now I'm watching, and you have to understand, I have cousins in there. I have my mom in there, my uncle's in there, and I'm like, this is the worst family reunion of all time. Like, I haven't seen these people. We haven't been in the same room in years. And now I'm a grown man and we're all here watching Lori. It was almost like not real life. And then to watch their interaction and watch her attack him like that. And one thing I thought was really interesting. I don't know if she's been doing this the whole time, but she ended everything with, did you personally see me, or what did she say? Did you personally see me plan or hear me planning out to murder my husband?
Yeah.
Conspiring.
She said
every single person.
Yeah, she said, right, exactly. And I wanted to talk about that too. Because so what she said you're right, what she said with every person was, did you see, hear, or witness?
Yep. There you go.
Me engaged in this criminal act or whatever. And, when she said that, I mean, first of all, from my perspective, we've talked about this before, Colby, but they're like, it's a very literal interpretation.
Yeah.
Not only of the legal aspects, but of the world. Like, if you're literally not in the room to witness a crime, then it didn't occur. That's what she's saying.
History doesn't exist because you didn't see it, right?
Right, doesn't exactly. Matter. And that, by the way, she told you that during your conversation about Tylee, like, and she told that during sentencing in her first trial. She said the same thing. She said, "Well, you don't know, you weren't there." Right? That's one of her refrains.
Yeah.
None of you were there. So you can't possibly know. And if you weren't there and you didn't see it or hear it or witness it, then it didn't occur.
It didn't happen. Right? Have you seen anyone ever, either one of you, have someone act so dismissive of anything they've ever done? And anything else that you've covered, anybody else you've watched, have you seen a human being literally dodge it as if everyone's crazy except for them?
Well, this is probably an excellent question for John, since his job is to go into prisons and assess criminals and interview them. But have you seen it to this extent?
Well, it presents itself so differently. I mean, it's hard to answer that question because criminals do a version of this. They just do it differently.
Right.
For example, I remember, this was a while ago now, but I remember I did an interview with a guy who, I'm going to have to be a little, I'm going to change up a little of this for privacy reasons, but I did an interview with a guy who had a bunch of images of child exploitative material on his computer, and he was caught in a sting operation. And I remember sitting in the interview with her, and we're talking about, I can't even give you, like, we're talking about thousands.
Okay.
Really?
We're talking thousands. And keep in mind, in the state of Arizona, this differs by state, but in Arizona, I don't know if they changed the law on this, but it used to be that Arizona was one of the most punitive states for that kind of thing. Yeah. And for one image or one video, you could get 5 to 10 years.
Wow. And he's thousands, you said?
I can't give you so.
Right.
Look, I had to, because it was because I'd never seen anything like it. I had to contact the FBI at the time and say, look, I got this case. Like, there's no research I can find. There's nothing I can find to, like, figure out how severe this is. Like, help me out here. Like, if somebody had this amount of this type of material, like, how long would it take to get it? Right. Like, and their answer basically was to get that kind of material, this person would have to download stuff basically every day.
Oh my gosh, bro.
For 24 hours a day for something like 10 years. Right? So, and the reason I tell you that is because it was so extreme, you can't even imagine, right? And And my job is to like assess whether this guy should be in the community, right? Like I have to assess whether the community's safe. And so I remember sitting in the room with him and him basically arguing that he didn't have a single image on his computer. He started off by saying it wasn't his computer, it wasn't his IP address. I mean, believe me, you don't charge someone with these types of crimes without knowing that it's precisely his computer and he had multiple computers, right? Like you're right. They proved all that beyond question.
Right.
And so think about the disconnect between, the most of that type of material you could ever imagine. And some guy saying, well, that wasn't mine. And then over the course of a couple hours, he started changing it a little. He's like, well, I may have had some, but I was, he claimed he was working with the secret organization to expose. It was crazy, right? Like, and so, this is the type of thing I run into a lot. And so the question is like, have I seen anything like it? I mean, this guy is kind of similar. It's just a different presentation, right? It involves a high level of denial.
Right.
You could argue that there's some delusion there, maybe about like, there's some delusion about how he sees the world and processes the world. And so, I mean, so the answer is probably, but it's just, it evolves or change. It just depends on the crime.
Right.
So is it denial? Is it narcissism? What is it that you see in criminals that do? It's all what? All of the above.
It's all of the above. It's being self-absorbed. It's being, having some narcissistic traits. It's living in this fantasy world. We could call it delusion. We could call it, psychosis in some cases. It really depends on the situation. It's denial, it's dissociation. It's all these elements that kind of come together. And I think like with your mother, it's the combination.
Yeah. It's weird to
that
watch.
Really makes it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
For sure. I thought like watching her, I wasn't sure what it would be like before the trial, but like to me, like in my field, it's mesmerizing. It's like I can't stop. It's like watching a train wreck. It's like, what the, and I mean, I'm just scratching the surface of things she's doing that are just,
what is it? Yeah. What'd you see today? I want to know too.
She's full. I saw that excitement in her eyes. She's like, you better spill the tea over here, Dr.
Yeah.
John.
When you're like, it's mesmerizing and you could say all these things that you saw, like, what did you see?
Well,
come on now, you got it. I want to hear it too. You got me all wrapped in here. My head, I'm so focused right now.
Okay, here's a small example. There's so many examples. You guys, we're gonna have to talk about more specifics to like get into that. But here's one. She's doing the interview with. I think it was with. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, not Serena. It was who did Charles have the date with?
Nancy Jo.
Nancy Jo. And she's there's so many crazy things she did with her, but she turns to her and she says, "Do you know what perjury is?"
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like,
yeah.
That's a threat, right? She's threatening a witness. And the DA is like, wait, this is, this is malicious. I forget the exact legal term. Malicious. What was the term? Do you remember, Lauren?
I don't remember. But
yeah, I know what you're saying. They're saying, yeah, you're literally threatening.
You're threatening her.
Yeah, you're trying to threaten her. Yeah.
You're scaring the witness.
Do you know what exactly. Yeah.
You're intimidating the witness and basically saying to the witness, "You're lying. You're lying. We're gonna now get you for perjury." I don't know, like, if your mom is planning on setting up her own law firm after this, right? Like, is she gonna?
Don't do it. She's got eight clients right now that are in her pod, so yeah. It's over. I'm sorry.
I've seen some dispute over that number. By the way, somebody wrote us and said, "I don't know what the real number is." Somebody wrote us and said, "No, there's really only 3 or maybe 4, three inmates on death row in her pod."
You can't trust a word she says. My gosh, you can't believe her for a second.
She did something similar to Serena too, and she got up and the first thing she said is, "Under God, you took an oath, yes. Under God, yes.
I can believe that.
You think your testimony is okay with God, yes. I mean, that's right. That's the same thing. Intimidation of a witness, saying that she's lying.
But let's critique what this means, though, right? Like from a psychological standpoint. You have a convicted murderer. I mean, the jury doesn't know that, but
right.
You have a convicted murderer doing cross-examination, threatening a witness. What she's showing us is that number one, she doesn't care.
No,
she's on a world stage here, and she's enacting, she's reenacting,
right,
the very attitudes of aggression and violence that got her where she is.
Right. Exactly.
Right. That's what's so crazy about this. She's showing us in real time.
Right.
Who she is. Like she is literally threatening a witness and threatening potential aggression and violence on the world stage.
Right.
And she doesn't care.
No. And well, that's what's so crazy, right? Because it's exactly like you said, Lauren. She stands up there, you guys saw, tries to threaten her, scare her, right? Mm-hmm. And then tries to disprove them ever being close, disproves the zombie thing, doesn't say that she ever said anything about the repentance, right? What's so crazy, though, is if you flip back, those extreme beliefs are somewhat of why we're here. So what I don't understand is how you can be on both sides of the coin. Because you're either so delusional that you do believe that you don't need to repent and that there are zombies and your husband's a zombie and he has to go and your kids have to go and all these things. But then when it all hits the fan, your Lori from before, who was a hairdresser and a fitness instructor and friends and loving, but then when you get someone in front of you like your own brother, you're just aggressive and you're mad at. Here's the thing I don't understand, not to jump off of Thursday, but even being mad at Nancy Joe, like, you were cheating,
right?
I can't understand how you could sit here and act as if you, like, she's so literally putting on. Yes, you're mad at her because you were married. You and Chad were both married. And I'm just sitting there like,
yeah,
I'm going to pull my hair out because I can't believe that you're saying my husband. Because the last time I just heard in that interview, you said Chad's your husband. Like, you can't figure out what planet you're on. But it's really odd because she seems to be so solid to herself. She tries to act as if she is so misunderstood. And I'm like, this is like, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's personality disorder. I don't know if you're flipping between two different human beings. One's this person, one's that person. Like, I genuinely have spent so much time trying to figure that out, and having what's her name come through and say to you and to everybody the belief system and have you say verbatim, tell me what I said.
That's like, the literal thing again. That's the literal thing again that John's talking about. Like, you want someone to remember from 2019. If they don't remember it verbatim, then they're lying. Then they don't remember the feeling or summary of what you said, and thus they can't relay it. Right. Well, and going back to the husband thing, Colby calling Charles husband over and over again, a lot of people have been saying, it feels like she's trying to perhaps show how much closer she was, how close she was to Charles, rather than say Charles, my husband, even though she demands, it's so contradictory too. She demands to go by the last name Daybell, but is demanding, to call Charles her husband. I think she proved that this is really what she's trying to do is manipulate and show a closeness there, because with Adam jumping up and saying, Mr. Cox, she's trying to distance herself
Right.
from Adam. So she knows what she's doing with the name calling. I think that that's what I learned Thursday too. She absolutely knows why she's calling Charles her husband over and over and over again, you know, and yeah. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, just the literalness of it again. And if we're talking religious beliefs, let me just say this too, because this is a question for John and you to see if you noticed it with Serena. She's arguing for and against these extreme beliefs. So on one end, she's like, how dare you say that I mentioned zombies because I didn't say zombies, just as she told you in your interview with you.
Right.
You know, she's the same thing. I didn't say this, even though she texted Z's. And so maybe she's really thinking, if I don't ever say the exact term zombie, you know, I can name an evil spirit Ned, but don't call Ned a zombie. You know what I mean? Like, but so on one end, she's like, how dare you say I ever talked about zombies? And then on the other end, she's arguing, how dare you think it's crazy that I'm not translated? Is it in the Bible? Is it in this? I'm translated. So on one end, she's trying to diffuse these extreme religious beliefs. And on the other end, she's totally raising them, saying like, why would you say I'm not translated? Right? Like I am translated because the Bible says so. It was weird.
That was really interesting. And I want to get both of your takes on that specific point, because I'm thinking to myself, so I don't read the Book of Mormon. Okay. I'm not LDS. I've been LDS since I was like 21. I'm 29. It's been a long time. So I've read my Bible, and especially after in like 2020, when I heard all this stuff about my mom and her belief system, I went straight to the Book of Revelation. I'm reading things and I'm trying to understand the 144,000, the end of the world, the apocalypse, Jesus coming back. Like I'm trying to figure out all this stuff for myself, because I was so confused at that point, because I'm like, I thought my mom was a good person. And I thought that she was really spiritually like trying, you know, so I just like had to reshape it. And so I ended up reading my whole Bible, and I do not know one example of the word. What does she use? Translating. Right.
Yeah.
So there's one example of, and it says it specifically in the Bible, it calls it transfiguring. And it's supposed to be when Jesus is with the apostles, he goes up on the mount, takes them, transfigures, and then goes back. There's no such thing. And we talked about this with the pop culture. She was obsessed. Okay. She used to say all the time, like weirdly obsessed with the idea of the immortal life and the vampires.
Twilight.
Okay, and Twilight.
The Twilight series.
Obsessed with this concept of your body never needing. She even said it to people, right? Like, I don't need to sleep. I don't need to eat. I don't need this. I don't need that. And it's like, she had to become something more like religiously too. So there was just something craving this idea of becoming like this. What do you even call that? Not a god, but like some type of fictional creature that surpasses being a human being. Basically, you're no longer a normal human being. You are some type of otherworldly entity that people should look upon with favor, I guess.
Absolutely. It's very Twilighty. Like it's very
Twilighty. If Twilight's your base of life, this is what you get. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a movie. Okay. It's pretend. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think John confessed to you that after you told him how much your mom liked Twilight, we went and we watched them. John is now a Twilight expert.
He's a fan.
But yeah, it is very Twilighty though, isn't it, John? Like this immortal.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's funny. Let's tell that story. I'm going to give your listeners an inside scoop here.
I love it.
I've never talked about, which is
I need it.
When we were on the set of Sins of Our Mother, you talked about that for the first time, and the whole crew of Sins was like, "Wow, that's great, that's fascinating." Right. And they're like, I don't know if they told you this, but they told me, they're like, please do not discuss that. They told me, they're like,
really?
You cannot talk. Yeah. They asked me not to discuss the Twilight because I think they thought at that moment they were going to use it, and they wanted it to be kind of a unique little nugget that no one else had. Right. And so I honored that. I wanted to.
Right.
You know, because it would have helped my analysis of your mom, but it wasn't until after the
movie came out.
documentary was that I started
Right.
thinking more about that issue because I couldn't talk about it, but in retrospect, they never used it.
No,
Um,
of course
they
not.
actually, ironically, so they showed me there was an earlier cut. They
Really?
showed me part of an earlier cut where they
Mhm.
did use it. And
Really?
they used the zombie things. They had like a scene from like The Walking Dead or something. And I'm like, man, that would have been a better. I wish they put out that
I
first
wish they
cut.
would have just
Right.
scrapped and restarted. Well, and the thing again, just to touch on that real quickly, was the reason why it's so frustrating because this is where my mind was at. I was trying to figure out mentally what happened to my mom because my whole family's gone and I can't understand
Yeah.
that. And it all starts with her. She's the reason why it's happening. You can call whoever you want, you can blame Alex, you can blame Chad, but she's the fuse to the bomb. Like there's nobody else more influential and important than the mother of the children and the wife to the husband. Okay? That's just how I see it. So I'm trying to figure out where she's at mentally and like I'm just walking that process out and everything and it just went so whatever happened at the end with that documentary. When I saw
Yeah.
it, I just was like, this is, you stamp it, that's yours, not mine. That's all on you because you cut out all of the real parts of it. And I think that was part of the discussion is that I felt like they were trying to even prove in there is like, where did she go wrong? Well, I told
Yeah.
you what I thought. John told you what he thought. Other people told you things and you didn't use the real people and the real examples of what happened. You'd rather just retell the story from other media. I don't understand that.
What do you wish the most that the documentary had added? I know you spent years on it. That's what else people don't realize either, is this was years in the making.
Like 2.5
Years.
years.
2.5 years.
I just
And
wish,
yeah.
I wish that you would have had tangible understanding of the effect it had. I wish you would have walked away feeling like you understood our family more and how crazy it really was. And maybe personally, I wasn't in a place to like explain it to people yet, like I am now. But I just felt like you didn't get to know. I tried to build the way I said I wanted to do it was let's add in the parts that you're interested in, which is like the psychological side of what happened because I think that's interesting too. I'm learning about that right now. But let's talk about in a timeline what happened with my family growing up because then you might make sense at the end. If I tell you what I experienced as a kid and what I saw my mom struggling with and going through and what was going on in our family situation and what Tylee was going through and then my perspective, I said all I can do is give you my perspective. I'm the only one here besides Lori. So why don't, and then I asked, like, let's just get other people who grew up with us who are actually part of this and let's let you see what it was really like versus the sensationalism of everything else that has to do with Lori. So I think they missed tangibleness for telling the story kind of like how everybody else does. Just copy and paste and copy and paste with your own new details and more in this. And again, I objectively said, hey, you guys did a great job with the cinematography. Like there's a lot of great elements here, but it has no substance. And then you throw my emotional moment with the memorial, my first time ever saying goodbye to them at the end, to me personally, as like an anchor to make people feel. And to me, that felt cheap because I lived that, but now you're doing it because it kind of gives you this, like, from a storytelling perspective, it gives you this ending. And I'm like, it just frustrated me. I thought John and I had a great conversation. I had a completely different perspective after we got done talking. And so just to see all of that pulled and then just more facts about Lori, personally at that time too, I was like, F this, bro. Like, I don't care. I don't want to tell the Lori story. I'm tired of it. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing. It's like I don't feel like you knew anything more about who they were. You just got a little bit more insight and details, I guess.
Yeah.
There was
about your. Oh, go ahead.
There was this is, and I don't know how much I can say about this, but
right.
But there, getting back, there was a first cut.
Right.
I just saw part of it.
Right.
But it was way more psychological.
Yeah. And maybe,
I think it's easy to blame the director and the producers and right, but in a way, like one of the things they told me was they have to run all this by Netflix.
Yeah, you have to
Like
be
in the
approved.
end, Netflix has the final say, and they ran the first cut by Netflix, and Netflix said no.
Yeah.
Netflix said no. I don't believe that our audience is ready for a documentary that's going to go a little deeper and get into the psychological elements. And Netflix basically said to them, you need to
Yeah.
go back and you need to tell more of the story.
Yeah.
And you right. And so in
Make
a
it more about Lori. Make it more
Yeah.
about Lori.
Make it more about her. Yeah.
Lori,
Frame
and
it
less
as
about
her.
Colby and less about psychology. Because in the first cut, I guess I was in a lot more. And
Which would have been great.
Well,
honestly,
I think in retrospect, I'm glad I wasn't in a way, but
yeah.
but like some of it has to do with the audience for true crime.
Yeah.
Right. And whether the audience for true crime really wants to get into the psychological elements of crimes as much, or get into like your personal emotions
I get
and
that.
your personal right and all the issues like it's because those I don't know, like the question I think for Netflix is that stuff going to be popular enough, right? They're trying to get
right. They
they're
got to
trying to
pull
get
in ratings.
subscribers.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
They got to pull ratings. And what they know about true crime is that the people who tell the stories,
right.
like the crazier the story,
right, exactly.
the more likely you are going to get higher ratings. Like so, I think some of this has to do with the fact that Netflix pulled the plug on the first cut, and they wanted something that was more traditional and more mainstream, and that was just let's tell a really crazy story.
Yeah.
And let's pull Colby and John's conversation about the personal, emotional, and psychological toll of these crimes on him.
Right, exactly.
On Colby.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Can I ask you two what your conversation was about? Because let me explain. I wasn't there. I've heard bits and pieces. Other people have asked me. They've been so curious.
Right.
Colby, you just said something that I'm even more curious about. You said that conversation sort of changed a perspective of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that many people, myself included, are curious, like what did you talk about in this conversation? So that's my first question. The second question is, how did it change your perspective, Colby?
Yeah. I mean, I'll go first really quickly. So at that point, I was processing everything, and I remember they just told me what we were going to do and how it was going to work. So they're like, we're going to go to Nevada, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to talk to someone named Dr. John. So I'm like, okay, that's totally fine with me. And so long story short, when we sat down, we just started talking, and I'm kind of just presenting ideas of what I've experienced and what I'd been going through in my life and what happened with my family and all these things. And long story short, like we just started having a real conversation, and he was explaining things that I was talking about with my mom. Like we got to a flow, and we started talking about the whole thing with Twilight and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is like, I'm bouncing it off someone who understands. And he was so understanding and empathetic. So it was kind of like, for me, just eye opening, because I couldn't ever understand where she was coming from. And here's someone who's been in this situation over and over and over, giving me personal perspective. So I think that's what, for me personally, like why it was such a big deal.
Okay. John?
Yeah. And from my perspective, so one of the things before I talked to Colby was I told him, and I told the Netflix crew and the director, Sky Borgman, I said, look, I want to make it clear, this is not therapy.
Right.
Colby's not my client. He's not my patient. This is a conversation. and I don't know
Right.
where it's going to go. Like, it's all going to be based on Colby and how Colby responds. And like, I just want to, I need this disclaimer up front. Like, this may seem like therapy at times, but that's not what this is. So, so really, you know, and having said that, I just really was kind of basing my questions off of Colby and how he was doing and how he was responding. And I think what I noticed was at that point, and this was years ago, that Colby was really struggling to make sense of it. And so my goal was really just to kind of help direct him to go a little deeper with certain things and to maybe see his mother in a slightly different perspective or light. That he was, at that time, he was really struggling to figure out if his mother was the person he thought she
Yeah.
was or whether she was someone else. And I think, you know, I wasn't trying to form an opinion. I was just trying to ask him questions where he could reflect on that and try to make sense of it. And I think
Yeah.
at that point, I kind of saw him really, really kind of trying to dig deeper and figure out who his mother was. And, you know, I remember one of the conversations we had, or one of the questions I asked him was, you know, was there anything from your childhood that, because you told a story that was kind of favorable for your mom, and you know, and you were stuck on that a little bit. And I said, well, was there anything from your childhood that you remember, you know, that might have been a little bit negative, or that, you know, do you remember anything your mom there did that wasn't so great? Right. And you thought about, you stopped for a minute, and then you started remembering some stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that's where it
I
started getting really interesting.
I think I told you about the time with the car, right?
Yeah.
About how she wanted to drive off the cliff. And
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like that was a defining moment. But I think Lauren, you're the one that said that. Like I was still so defensive even to myself. No, she's a good mom. Like
Mhm.
she was stressed out. Like I always rationalized her
Right.
behavior as
Right.
something, and that's just like, no, that's crazy. Like that's like a defining moment of life. Like my mom was trying to commit family suicide. What am I supposed to do? Like that's not a normal situation. So I
Right.
think that that's one of those things where when I when I bounce that off of you and you didn't have like a reaction, because I'm so used to her reactions of being so huge, and you're so like, okay. I was like, oh, yeah. And then it just gives you like a different perspective. And then I think we ended up talking more about that. Um, but for me personally, like that's what changed my perspective is I'm asking you stuff like personal things. And you're like, well, this could be because of, you know, the religious beliefs. And you started just breaking things down. And like, basically, I just had all these personal questions. So like when we were talking, it was just very like one-on-one kind of feeling. And everybody was just kind of there. That's what it
Mhm.
felt like. And I think that that's why I was like, that was great. And I remember telling Kelsey the same thing. I'm like, I just had like the most unexpected conversation about this situation because at that point I'd never spoken about my mom to anybody else. And even with Kelsey, I think I was still defensive of her in some ways. And I'm like, well, no, like she tried really
Yeah.
hard and I always came up with excuses for her because I had to do that and cater to her all the time. And so I had
Right.
to uncondition for years now just to realize what I was doing. And I think that's why that moment in court was so big the other day was it kind of just everything about all that burden of her. Like I always felt like a burden of just her wanting to care for her or take care of her, something of that nature just broke. And we stood there and had that just 10 seconds of uninterrupted eye contact. And Kay's like, did she really just smile at you? And I was like, yeah, she's crazy. Like she's just staring. I just stood there stoically. I just stared her down and she just is sitting there like just smiling with her head tilt. And I'm like, you know, I think it just finally made me realize that this whole thing with the psychological thing, all these aspects have existed and then something triggered for her to go full force. And the more I pick apart my life, the more I realize what it was really like. And now I have to do things differently for myself. But watching her from this third person is like it's something I can't put into words.
I feel like you just explained it a little bit better for me this time, and I want to ask John what it is. As you said, he breaks things down, but you just said you felt released from the burden of taking care of her. And to me, that makes sense because yes, what I told you is I will never forget the first time it wasn't even an interview. You put yourself on video to request your mother to bring the kids back. And at that moment, the world was looking and we were trying to figure out who the hell Lori was and who Chad Daybell was. Like, you know what I mean? And so I was watching your video from my perspective. I was watching your video to try to understand again who your mom was more. Oh, look what just happened.
Oh gosh.
Guys. I'm in a portal. Just a second.
She's in a portal.
So I'll finish this and then I'll fix my camera in a second. But I was watching you trying to understand who your mom was, and you were walking on eggshells. That's what I explained to you last time. You were like, Mom, can you tell me where the kids are? But Mom, it's okay. Like, you're wonderful. Yeah. You're a great mom. But Mom, let me know where my sister and brother are. But Mom, I'm not getting mad at you. I'm not, it's okay. I was like, oh, this is some of this walked on eggshells their whole life. So for you to say, I felt lifted of the burden, I think for me, like you felt lifted of the burden of like, maybe just always trying to tiptoe around things and take care of her or feel guilty. Maybe it's the guilty of how you should be doing something. But I'm curious. I do kind of want to know what John thinks, because you talked about this after court, this feeling that like maybe disassociating from her being your mom or whatever. And you said you can't find the words to kind of figure it out. And I'm curious what John thinks it might be. And I'll try to get out of this portal, guys. And hold on one second.
They got you. Come on. Cynthia out here with the quip. Come on now.
Yeah, we're all in the portal at some point or another. Just hopefully not Chad's portal.
No, because you're not coming back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think just listening to your take the other night, it sounds like you're figuring out a way to create some healthy distance.
Yeah. I do have to ask you this. So I did not know this. Kelsey texted me this. When we were doing our show the other night, you mentioned the storm. I did not know what that was. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking you meant storm as in like the situation's really bad. So I'm so glad I didn't say anything else, because Kelsey's like, do you even know what she just said to you? Because she's like, it's a little drizzle. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's not a big deal. Like, I was just being fun. I didn't know. She's like, tell her about the storm.
And Thank you, Kelsey, for explaining.
I didn't even know what you were talking about. I'm so glad. I'm glad I didn't say like, oh, I like the storm. Like, I'm so glad I didn't say some stupid crap. I'm so grateful because I didn't even know. Kelsey's
I would have not known that you didn't know. The way you reacted, I would have not known. You didn't know.
That's the thing. I thought you just meant the situation so bad. So you're like, oh no, it's not that bad. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Like, it's just, I was just playing along. I'm just really glad that I did not say some stupid stuff.
Glad Kelsey has informed you.
That was well played, Colby. Well played.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so real quick, because we'll get to a couple questions at the end, but I want to know what you guys thought about Kay and how that went, because I personally thought that was going to be the battle of battles. I truly did.
I know. I'm actually curious what John thinks too, because just, I don't know. I put it in front of him. He watched the whole thing.
Right.
What I said was, I thought she was incredible. She held her own. I thought it was a mic drop at the end when Lori asked, like, were you there? Again, being literal. And she said, do you know? Because you saw, she said, no, but I've seen a lot of evidence. You did.
Yeah.
And then Lori, rather than like pushing, was just like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
It kind of ended. And so it was like this great moment for Kay. But I thought she would be I thought she would attempt to be very intimidating to Kay. And maybe she was trying, but it didn't go well because Kay was ready and held her own, and I think your mom was nervous, but then I have questions about that too, because I'm like, can I don't know, you don't see Lori nervous a lot, even the whole
Mm-mm.
giggling with the neighbors after Charles' shot. She's like, "Hi, neighbors." Like, she never seems nervous about
Yeah.
anything ever. So I don't know what the shaking was because, even Melanie Gibb explains that when Chad and Lori both called her to say lie about where JJ is after that welfare check,
Yeah.
that Chad was nervous, but Lori wasn't. She's like, just lie. Just say you're at Frozen 2. And so I do want to understand why she was shaking, why she felt a little bit more timid.
Yeah.
But that's what I saw, and I thought
Yeah.
he did great.
Yeah. Personally, I was watching that moment, and again, like I said, I thought that that was going to be the battle of battles right there. I thought she was going to go the absolute buck wild on Kay because
Yes,
she's waited for this moment this for years. And before this
years.
happened, when the jury walked out and me and her had that eye contact, she changed from me, and Kay's right next to me. She changed from me and looks through her, peers through her eyebrows, and just mean mugs Kay. So I'm like, it's going, like, if Kay goes today, it's going down. Like, this is going to be the worst version of this. And for some reason, I think that because you could tell that Kay was so on not backing down and you could tell that she was more aggressive, I think that something about Lori felt threatened. I genuinely believe she was more nervous and scared. And I told that to Kay after. I'm like, you scared her because that was wild. Why didn't she attack you? She barely said anything to you, and then she asked you the same question she asked everybody, and she dipped out. I couldn't believe that, honestly, because I really did, and I was nervous for Kay because I'm like, she's gonna go at her, and it's so unfair because this is a horrible situation. But when she just stood up there, asked her a few things, Kay was right back on her, and then it was over. I don't know. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I think some of it was that Kay was pretty fearless, right? That she wasn't
Yeah.
gonna. I think Kay knew that she wasn't gonna back down, or she wasn't gonna be intimidated by Lori,
Right.
and so I think she took the stand with a lot of confidence,
Right.
and that showed. I do think though that I think that your mom was a little more restrained because I think there's a lot of doors that could have been opened. Like if she asked the wrong questions,
Mhm.
she could have opened the
She
door to a lot of problems, right?
Right.
In terms of the murders of JJ and Tylee, right? Like right now, the jury doesn't know a lot about what happened
Right.
previously. And Lori knows that, Lori
Mm,
knows that it wouldn't take a lot to go down
okay.
the wrong path.
That
And I
makes a lot
think
of sense.
Kay is certainly maybe the person that could open some of those doors if she slips. If she asks the
Yeah.
wrong question
Yeah.
and slips up, Kay would love to jump in and say, well, you
Right.
murdered you murdered these kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kay did almost slip a couple times. In fact,
Yeah.
Kay said, "I knew that JJ wasn't safe with
Yeah.
Lori. The last time I saw JJ was May. Like, clearly that wasn't 2025 then."
Right.
And I was actually kind of maddened at the jurors for not asking any
Yeah.
questions, but we'll get to that later. But that's a good point, John. I didn't think about that if she could introduce that Tylee and JJ are no longer alive. Hmm.
Yeah.
Or she could ask the wrong question that would open the door for the DA, right?
Right.
For the DA to come back and introduce that. And
Right.
so I think there was you had this conflict for Lori, which was she wanted to be aggressive and she wanted she wanted some type of vindication or revenge on Kay, but then
Right.
she knew that she had to be somewhat restrained or she might really open up a can of worms that she could never close.
Yeah. Well, I think she has to be careful, and I that's one thing I have really been baffled by watching is them going around the fact that they can't say that. It's so crazy to me. Like, just from me as the brother, I'm like, it is crazy that we have to watch them dance around that. And I hear even with Nancy Joe, same thing, like having to very carefully explain herself without tipping anything, is crazy. But the questions that Lori asks with the personal vendetta, she can't help herself. So I think at some point, honestly, she's going to slip because she's not calculated enough. And she's personally has a problem with each person she called. And so I'm thinking at some point she's gonna give the open door, and then by that point it's over. So I don't know what she's gonna do when she does it to herself. I thought she'd do it with Kay, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I did too. I wasn't sure, but I think that. So I think she wasn't going full bore with Kay because she was aware of the fact that she could really, step in it if she slipped up and asked the wrong question. And I'm sure Kay would have been
ripped her. Somebody needs to rip her. Somebody's got to do it.
Right. Kay would have been more than happy to do that, to really throw under the bus.
That's a good point, because that last question, did you see me conspire to kill my husband? And her answer, Kay's answer, no, but I saw a lot of evidence that you did. If Lori then pressed, oh, what evidence? Guys, I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's okay. It's okay. We still love that you're here.
Lori, and says, what evidence? Then, well, what evidence? How about, you killed your children, Brandon Boudreaux. So you're right. Like, that opens up a can of worms.
Well, it opens that door. And, for me personally, I didn't know that was going to happen. I know Adam was going first until like that night, because I made my mind up kind of last second, really. And so for me, that was like, wow, there couldn't have been more of an intense time to show up. And that's why I was so interested in what you guys thought, because for me, like I said, this is a bunch of people I had Thanksgiving with. This is people I grew up, they've known me since I was a little kid. And now we're all in the room together watching Lori. And I cannot tell you what the scope of that is like, because now I'm looking around, there's all these other people there, and we're all so confused on how this is happening in this family. And so I think for me personally, I'm really glad that Adam and what I want for all of us now at this point is just to move on at some point. Like, at some point you just have to move forward, and you can't keep having to relive this and rehash it. And so I was really grateful that at least for that interaction with Lori and Kay, that Kay didn't have to go deeper than she already did. And again, like I said, she gave her perspective on what happened with Charles. And that was like a whole nother level of heartbreak, because I didn't know exactly how that happened either. So I think walking away from Thursday, I was like, I just, as much as I know I want Charles to have his justice, it's going to be really nice when all of it is said and done, because that was emotionally exhausting to watch. And I wasn't even in it. I wasn't even a part of it. Like, I didn't have to testify. I didn't have to do any of that. I just had to, even being in the room, it was a lot. So
yeah, it must be really difficult, to have to endure this trauma over and over again, right? Like, I mean, as we've talked about before, she doesn't need to be doing this.
No.
Well, it is trauma. I'm tired of it. I'm exhausted. And I'm not a survivor in this, a surviving victim in this case. I don't have to live with, what she did to me and my family. And I'm exhausted. I'm ready. And I can't imagine how all of you are doing it. Right. Like, for all of you, I do want you guys to be able to, for Kay, for so many, I want you guys to be able to move on. And it's just, it just keeps going 5.5 years later.
Yeah, one I think that's another great point is that the reason why it's interesting is because you guys have a completely different perspective as well. But you've talked to these people, right? You've talked to Tammy's family and Kay and all this stuff, and you see what it's like. And I think that's what's made me so passionate and why I love you guys as well is like giving people a different side of media to talk about the real side of this stuff because you might just see that moment in court. But I think there is a loss in translation. I think you said it earlier, John, too, is like it's really about the detail and how crazy it can be. I used to listen to this for a short period of time, listen to this YouTube channel called Scary Interesting, and that's all it does. Okay. And he just is like, and they found a person in the cold. And like, I'm like, I'm getting chills and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is too intense. I can't do it. But I'm like, I get why people like it. It's just that I'm sitting in the room, and even though I'm involved directly, I'm watching Kay and Adam. I'm even feeling for Serena, how unfair it is to have to be put in this position. And even for the analysts, like all these people are here from one person, and that will always baffle me. The fact that we're all sitting here because of one person, really mainly one person. You can blame whoever else, but it blows my mind that we have been in this position for this long and that we're 3 trials going into 4 for one person's actions. So I think the takeaway is try to do better and don't make what is the enchiladas? Don't make the green chili chicken enchiladas. Don't even try.
Leave the green chili enchiladas alone.
Yeah, leave them alone.
Or if you're gonna make them, at least use like some decent green chili. You know,
right.
Use some,
make it spicy.
Make it spicy.
Do something. Right. Don't just throw it in there, crock pot, pre-made already, like canned chicken and everything. What were you gonna say, Lauren?
No, I was gonna say, going back to your scary, interesting thing. Yeah, I think, I think it's clear. We've said this before, but the reason John and I started talking about this case from the very beginning, when JJ and Tylee were nowhere to be found, and Chad and Lori were in Hawaii, was to understand it. Like, and it's true. I think everyone knows that. That's how our podcast started. Was me asking John questions because I couldn't stop. I was a retired broadcaster, retired to stay home for the moment, with our son. And I was sitting on the couch a lot and just home trying to process being a mom and missing my career. And I couldn't stop. So guys, I couldn't stop reading about everything and asking questions and trying to understand it.
Oh, we both went out at the same time.
Look at that. Hi, John. Are you so nervous now, John?
What the heck just happened?
John's all nervous.
Yeah,
my gosh.
I
the
think
camera went on John's by himself.
I think
John's stressed right now.
I think Lori might be working some of her black magic from the jail
we've been playing too many games.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We played we dissed the enchiladas and we are screwed.
Lori looked like all my friends' moms growing up.
No, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah, what is going on?
Okay, well then let's do this. Let's wrap it up since we're having so many tech issues. I don't know what just happened to the camera.
Does this mean is the interpretation of this, by the way, that I'm the only one on here that's not dark? Is that a fair?
You're still in the light. That's why.
Is that a fair assessment? No, I mean I know you guys.
You're safe. You're safe.
Yeah, okay, cool.
You're safe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, obviously we had a little bit of tech issues, but I appreciate you guys. I'm sorry my camera went out too. I'm not sure what happened, but this is a great conversation. Thank you guys so much, seriously, for being here. Thank you for opening up your perspectives. I truly get so engaged when we're talking, like when John, when you're speaking, and Lauren and you guys sharing your perspectives. And one thing like I said, even for your channel is so interesting to me too, is that we're doing something different with media rather than what maybe even Netflix tried or what everybody else is doing. I love this idea of being able to do your own decision on how you speak about it, what you're looking for, why it's interesting to you, your perspective. I love that. So I just wanted to applaud that on your guys' channel and tell you how much I appreciate you coming onto the podcast. And we almost made it to the end, but we got screwed. We almost made it.
Yeah.
We got
Almost. Oh.
sabotaged by some dark spirits.
I guess so.
Colby, do you think you're gonna do any more days of court, or was that plenty for you?
Yes, I will let you all know that if I go. I'm
Yeah,
thinking about maybe one more day
it's a
before
maybe. Yeah.
sentencing. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it right now just to kind of see where I'm at. It also was nice too for me personally to just kind of get in there, kind of get a feeling for it, and then get out. So I
Yeah.
think that was good.
Yeah. And that's what
But
you did. We all wait in a line. We walked in and then you walked in after. You're
right.
incognito. We don't see you guys walk in, and they fill that first row
Mm,
after we all get in there. So I'm glad. It was good
yeah.
to see you from afar. I was in the back row, but yeah,
Right.
maybe I'll see you again then. So,
Yeah. Well, and
all
absolutely, and
right.
I'll let you know if we're gonna go. But thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Thank
Colby.
being on the
you.
podcast. And
Yep. Thanks for
thank you
having
to,
us.
of course.
Yes.
And thank you guys all for your chats and everything. We appreciate you, love you, and keep you up to date on the community tab. Thank you guys. Good
All
night.
right. We'll see you. Good night.